Hi, welcome to the Oxbridge Formula. Today I have with me someone from Queens who'll be talking a little more about life at her college. So first, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Victoria, and I study geography at Queen's College, Cambridge.
Yeah, so welcome. Thank you for being here. The first question I want to ask is, how did you choose your college?
Yep, so that's a really good question. So when I was in year 12, I went to a summer school with an organisation called the Certain Trust. And so, coincidentally, the summer school I went to was for geography in 2016, and it was hosted at Queen's. So I had a great opportunity to, live in the college. It was really, really close to the geography department, it's like a 7-minute walk from Queen's. And so I had such a good experience of the college on summer school, I decided to then choose the college when I was applying later on.
Yeah, and then I guess the first time you visited Queens was when you were in year 12. What was your first impression of Queens?
Yeah, I really liked it because it was quite varied in the sense that there's some older parts, but then also there's really modern parts as well. So it's quite interesting because there's a bridge, the mathematical bridge, which is quite popular, that almost like divides the two parts of college. So I liked how diverse it was in the sense that it was, different kind of buildings. Um, I think I also liked how central it was to other colleges. So it's really close to St. Catherine's College, it's really close to Newnham College, it's really close to King's College, because it's really close to the King's Parade. So I know with all the people I met there who were current Queen students were also really, really friendly. So I think like a friendly atmosphere, really centered in town. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned a little bit about the very central location. In what ways is your college like conveniently located?
Yeah. So I think for a lot of students who do like humanities, or even like STEM subjects. So I've got friends who do biology, friends who do human, social, and political sciences. I study geography. It's all quite close to their departments. So Downing site is where I do my geography lectures, and some medicine lectures are in Downing site as well. So I know people who find it really, really convenient. The same with Sidgwick site, which is quite a lot of like the humanities, art subjects are also located, which is again really close to Queens. Also, when it comes to shopping, it's really close to King's Parade, which I mentioned, which has like the marketplace, there's the big shopping centre, so it's really really close as well. And then also a lot of the central colleges, a lot of my friends go to central colleges, so it's really easy just like to pop by the Newnham or St. Catherine's College to go and say hey to a friend. So I think in that sense, it's quite like conveniently located.
Yeah, and you're talking about a couple of different colleges, but I mean, if you couldn't apply to Queens, which college would
Mm-hmm.
you have applied to? And could you maybe tell me why?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for me personally, so the very first time I ever went to Cambridge, so beyond Queens, was when I was in year 11. So that's because each Cambridge and Oxford college have a link area system. So they link up with areas across the UK in like deprived communities. So I'm from East London, and East London schools, some East London schools are linked up with Clare College. So I went to go and visit Clare College in year 11. And I really like the atmosphere. So I think for me, that's probably why I probably would have like picked Clare because of the link area system. And yeah, I think it's quite funny. So when I did the summer school, I actually didn't even know that there was like 31 colleges. I was just like very like a billion, like I don't know. I think I thought like there's like six or something. Um, but yeah, it's quite interesting. But yeah, definitely like Clare College.
And do you have any regrets for choosing Queens?
No regrets at all. Literally, yeah, no regrets at all. I think a lot of people always say during the Oxbridge application process, you end up loving your college. And I think I got that advice when I was applying. It's like, oh, these people are lying. Like, it's not the truth. But then when you come here, it's actually like, yeah, it's very, very accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess one interesting question might be, if you did spend your years at Claire's, what do you think would be the one aspect of your life which would have been really different?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, I think it's quite cliche, but I think for me, the people, I don't know, I can't, imagine what my life would be like at Clerks. I'm not there. But for me, my director of studies, the kind of like girls I've been able to meet in the year above, like were amazing. So a lot of Cambridge colleges have something called the JTR, or like the student union within the college. And I was the BAME officer, so Black Asian Minority Ethnic Officer. And I wouldn't have done that role if it wasn't for the girls in the year above, and 2 years above, who encouraged me to do it. So I think for me, it would definitely be the kind of people I've met at Queen's, like my college like family, like my college brother. I'm really, really close with him and like a few other friends. So I'll probably say the people, even though like, I don't really know if that it probably would have been like replicated in Claire's, who knows, like, you never know.
Yeah. And on the subject of you being the BAME officer, like how would you consider how would you maybe like consider Queens to be doing in terms of diversity and their attitudes towards diversity?
Yeah, so I think one of the main reasons as to why I decided to be the BAME officer, because like I was having like a good time at college, but I think I wanted to encourage like more other initiatives. So I think overall the college is definitely taking like a quite a serious note when it comes to diversity. For example, I alongside St. Catherine's College organised the very first BME Access Day. So that was supposed to be like, face to face, but obviously because of COVID, it was online. And the college admissions team was super, super like, encouraging in regards to trying to run the event. So that's one way. Another way is like last year when I was in my first year of university, like basically like 12 months ago, so obviously there's a few students who are Muslim and who may be fasting during Ramadan. And of course it can be quite inconvenient to try and fast, but then also try and study for exams and then cook for yourself. So I organized a system within like the Queen's Catering like office to try and organize something for students who are fasting. And then the college was super, super like, open to that. So I think there's like a variety of ways the college has been like really open to diversity. Another good example is back in March. So, to celebrate International Women's Day, Queen's had like a, women's conference. So I got to speak about my own experience being a woman at Queen's. So I think the college is definitely doing like quite good in regards to pushing new initiatives. And they're definitely really open in regards to like listening to students, and also the admissions team do like a really fantastic job with a variety of initiatives. So when I was my first year of university, I took part in something called the Queen's Access and Outreach Roadshow. It's basically where, a few students from Queen's College, Cambridge, go to different state schools across Kent, Havering, and Bradford, and speak about experiences of, Cambridge, and try and demystify the application process. And I encourage more state school students to think about applying to Cambridge, but also university more generally.
It sounds like you did a lot of initiatives that were really helpful for your
Yeah,
people too.
I think, yeah, it's like really, really good fun. I learned so much from doing it as well. And it's been also refreshing knowing how supportive the college have been in regards to that as well.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of support, in what ways do you think college is supporting student welfare?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think obviously it's going to be different for different students, but I guess like for my own like personal experience, Queens do have like a tutor system, so you can reach out to your tutor if you have any like personal issues with your like studies. Also, if students have any issues with their mental health or well-being, they can reach out to the college nurse, and it's like a really friendly team of people. I think beyond that, they're quite open when it comes to, so on the JCR, they do a variety of initiatives to try and like improve well-being. So one of my friends who was on the previous JCR to me, he was like the like men's officer. So they would like he would organize they would organize different events to encourage like people to chill like in the evenings and not stress too much. So I think from both like a college level but also student level, there's a variety of like initiatives that are done to like improve like well-being. But I think it's definitely dependent on the student. Obviously not all students are going to have the best experience, but I think for me the biggest thing I realized, especially someone who went to state school, was the importance of reaching out to people. And of course it's quite difficult to do that initially, especially if you might be in quite like a dark place. So reaching out to people and knowing that there is support out there, it's just about finding the right support network, whether that's from like family, whether it's from friends, whether it's from going to counselling, or like university has something called the DRC, so the Disability Resource Centre. There is the support out there, just by going to reach out for it.
Yeah. And would you say Queens like actively encourages people to go and pursue that kind of welfare support?
I think in my personal experience, yes. I can't speak for anyone else. I'm not anyone else. I'm only Victoria. But in my personal experience, I would say yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's the funding like at your college?
So obviously students, depending on like their financial background, will be eligible for student finance, maintenance loans, but also the Cambridge bursary, which is around £3,500 per year. On top of that, I know some students, so this isn't applicable for me, but I know some of my friends who may not necessarily get the full Cambridge bursary, but they might have issues during the course of the academic year, and they've reached out to college to help with regards to that. There's also like funding for trips abroad, so like you can apply for travel grants. There's also different like funding if you want to pursue like musical interests. There's also funding from the JCR. So recently with COVID, students at Queen's can apply for like money to have like quite innovative ideas that will help, you know, lift like the college spirit of students during like this time. So yeah, it's quite varied.
Okay, let's move on to a bit of the college facilities. So first and foremost, how big is your college?
Yeah, I think Queen's is quite big. In regards to like area or like the number of students.
Oh, I
I think
think
it's
I
like around
know
like
Queens has around 500 undergrads, if I'm
yeah,
correct,
yeah, like
but
around
like
yeah.
just in terms of size, I guess. And what are the grounds like, actually?
Yeah, I really like the grounds. Like so, like I mentioned earlier, it's quite different because you've got the old side and you've got the more newer side. Um, in my first year of university, a lot of first years live in crypts, so the more newer side, the more new side. New is not a word; it is a word, but I use it in the wrong context. In the more new side, and so you know, there's a gym there, and the gym is £25 for the whole entire year, which is like really good because most gyms are like £20 per month. They have squash courts. You've got Crips dining hall, which is where most students might get dinner, or you can cook for yourself and then bring dinner to Crips. There's also different facilities for internet. So, you know, if students might not have a laptop or might want to print out, there's like printing facilities. You know, obviously there's laundry facilities, which now I think going into the new academic year, we no longer have to pay for laundry, but we did have to. But yeah, I don't know if that's going to change the future. But not paying for laundry this year, which is nice. Yeah, there's a variety of like there's also music rooms. So a lot of students within Queens are quite musical. So I DJ at university, so I've like used the music rooms to practice DJing, and that's like been like something that's been quite nice about Queens. So I was taught how to DJ by a few of the guys in Queens. So yeah, there's quite like a lot of facilities. Yeah, a lot of like rooms to book out. Also the JCR room. So it's like it's quite nice. So it's like it's on the third floor. And there's bean bags there. There's like computers there. You can play Wii Sports if you want to. You can like chill there. And it's got a really really gorgeous view of like the Mathematical Bridge and Silver Street. And then also a lot of people don't know this about Queens, but there's a rooftop garden. So right next to the Porter's Lodge, you can, but it's quite easy to miss. So it's almost like a secret spot that you only know like once you know it. I remember my friend showed me it for the first time like 6 months into my first year. I was like, oh, I didn't know this existed. But you go up some stairs, there the Porter's Lodge, you know, giving all the secrets away. And then like it's a gorgeous like, you know, gardens, and it's really really peaceful. And again, you can see a gorgeous view of the Mathematical Bridge and Silver Street. So yeah, those are like some of the facilities quite briefly.
Yeah. Wow. I have so many questions. I don't know where to start. First of all, what kind of circumstance led you to learn DJing?
Yeah. So I'm very passionate. I'm very, very passionate about music. A lot of my like school friends kind of joke about this, but when I was in year 8 and year 9, I'd always send like weekly recommendations of songs to my like one of my good friends. And so since then, I've always been super passionate about music, and even in geography. So I did a podcast with the Royal Geographical Society earlier this year, and I spoke a bit about Drake, and how he links in with geography in regards to cultural identity. So I think for me, like not just in the academic sense, but also within regards to like my own life, I'm very very passionate about music. Also, where I grew up in London, it's a hub of so much musical talent. Whether it's like UK rap or like, you know, the garage scene. So I think for that, like that kind of almost like spurred me. And so every year Queens have an event called Bounce. So obviously it was cancelled because of COVID this year, but it's basically like a barbecue and there's bouncy castles. It sounds like weird, like a lame, but it's actually so good. Like when you go, it's actually really, really nice. And it's like a cool event to go to. And a few of the students at Queens went to DJ for Bounce. And I thought, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. They're so like talented. I want to do it. So I reached out to two of them who DJ'd on the night and asked for advice over the summer. And then, you know, over the summer I started to like learn on YouTube. And then when I got back to university, it's like, you know what, Victoria, we're taking this seriously. And so Queens have something called BOPs, which is like, you know, very common for all Cambridge colleges. And so I DJ'd for the very first time at a BOP, which is like no pressure because yeah, it's just like Queens students, but I think I definitely want to like, you know, develop my skills a lot more further. So that's kind of how I got into DJing. Yeah. Passion and interest and inspiration from other people.
Yeah, wow. That is, I would not expect someone to pick up DJing at college, but that's pretty cool.
Thank
You
you.
mentioned a lot of facilities in your answer before. I was wondering if I went into Queens and I was just walking around, where would I expect to find you then?
Oh, that's a good question. To be fair, I think I spent a lot of my time in the computer room. So I was having issues with my laptop in second year. So I barely opened that laptop because it was slow. It was not the one. So I spent a lot of my time like writing my notes handwritten, but also I went to the printing room. So I'm not gonna lie, you probably would find me in like the print like the printing area quite a lot. Or maybe the JCR because they have like printers too, which sounds like such a weird answer. Sorry, but yeah, like I spent a lot of time in those rooms.
And would you say like, well, I know a lot of colleges have really bad Wi-Fi problems because the buildings are so old. How is it like at Queen's?
I think Queens, the Wi-Fi has been, for me, in my own personal experience, Wi-Fi has been like, pretty good. Yeah. And this is
Okay, so
coming from
it
someone
was
who
just
uses
like
the internet.
printing.
Yeah, printing, you can use our Wi-Fi. Yeah. I can't believe I didn't have a laptop. Sorry. More of the story, guys. Get a laptop if you can. And we'll try and like, get funding for a laptop. But yeah, that laptop was slow. I've got a new one, thankfully. I'm using this one. Yeah.
Well, hopefully next year you can use your laptop instead of going to the computer room.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess one question I have is lots of Cambridge colleges have very traditional reputations. What would you consider to be Queen's reputation?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there are some aspects that are quite traditional, but I also think it's quite modern. I think especially from someone who went to state school in inner city London. For me, I don't necessarily think any of the traditions, in my opinion, have been like overbearing or like have made me feel uncomfortable. But again, I can only speak from my own experience. So even things like with like matriculation dinner, wearing formal gowns, like I was speaking to my friends who also go to state schools in Queens, and they mentioned how they actually do like it. So I think it really depends on the person. You know, yeah, I don't really mind the traditions. It's quite like nice and different from inner city London. So yeah.
And what are some like Queen specific traditions?
Oh, I think that's a good question. Some Queen specific traditions. Oh, actually, so every single year, Queens holds, if I'm not mistaken, I think the biggest indoor rowing competition or the biggest like UK or English rowing competition. And that's in the main hall where they hold like bops and like conferences. And so that's like an event where students who do rowing within Cambridge come and like row indoors with their team. So it's like quite like a fun event, like quite like motivational, like spurring on your friends to do well. So that's like one like cool tradition that comes to mind. Yeah.
Yeah, when you say rowing, do you mean like the rowing machines?
Yeah, the
Oh,
rowing
okay,
machines.
okay. Yeah, I was trying to imagine for some reason actual rowers. Okay.
Yeah. Somehow get the water in there. Yeah. Yeah, machines.
Yeah, and I want to move on. You talked about the main halls. I want to move on and talk about food. So, what's the food like at college? Do you like it?
Yeah, so I think for me, in my first year of university, I probably like ate my own food or cooked my own food. Maybe like 60% of the time, and then 40% ate in the dining hall. I think to be fair, like the food is good. There's also quite a wide variety. So there's vegan meals and there's vegetarian meals. There's also like halal meals as well. So I think it's quite like a good variety. And then also, like I mentioned, there's formals as well. So I think the formal food, in my opinion, is like quite good. And also the atmosphere is quite nice. And also Queens has two halls. So the main hall is Cripps Hall. But then also they have Old Hall on the older side of college. And Old Hall is gorgeous. Like, oh, it's beautiful. And so I think if there's like any opportunity to go to Old Hall, like I just go and have dinner there. So a good example is every single year on the JCR there's women's officer. And my friend Estelle was women's officer like last year, and so like she organized and hosted the annual women's dinner in November, which is like a great opportunity to celebrate women at Queens, and just like hang out with friends, both male and female, and so that was like a nice opportunity.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that there was two dining halls, which is insane. But what are the food options like? How many? I think you have a buttery and
yeah. So there's a pottery and there's 3 different dining times, so people can have breakfast there, people can have lunch there, people can have dinner there. I'm laughing because Queens is quite like popular for brunch. So on Saturday and Sunday, there's like brunch options in the afternoon, and it's quite like it's like a thing. It's a thing people do. People go to Queens for brunch. So like that's like an option that people do, and it's good brunch. if you like English breakfast food.
Hmm. So like basically clogging up your arteries and everything.
When you say it like that, yeah. I mean, to be fair, like I don't know if people, yeah, oh yeah, basically.
And
But
you
that's like,
mentioned in, sorry?
I know that's like with I guess all brunch foods. I mean, there's also like healthy options. So there's vegetarian sausages. You can have like croissants. You can have toast. Yeah, quite varied.
Yeah.
You don't have to clog up your arteries if you don't want to.
And you said that you cooked a lot in first year. So what are the
Hmm.
Queen's Kitchen facilities like? Can you cook like a good meal?
Yeah, I think you can cook a good meal. Initially, it's a bit different because so where I lived in like the newer side, so Crips, and then in my second year of university, I lived in Friars, so on the older side. So both of them, it's initially weird because there's no freezers, um, other than in some areas in college. So basically, I never used the freezer, and there's also no ovens in my like where I've lived. There's never been like ovens, but there are like some like freezers littered around the college and stuff. Um, and there might be ovens in some places. I'm not sure. But yeah, basically, initially it was just a bit weird. There's no oven, there's no freezer. When I came back home from university for Christmas, like, oh my gosh, this is what a freezer looks like. I forgot like how it looks. I forgot you could like freeze food. But you get used to like cooking meals without having to use an oven or freezer. And it's like, to be fair, it's quite good. In fact, if anything, it probably like encourages you to cook like more healthy because you're like cooking every single day, or you're cooking once and then put it in the fridge for 2 days. Yeah, it kind of allows you to like eat fresh food rather than like frozen pizzas and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been like quite good.
Hmm. And so you mentioned that your first ever DJ gig, I suppose, was a college bop. What are the
Hmm.
college bops like at your college?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think I've actually only ever been to college bops when I was DJing, so I'm not really necessarily the best person to ask. But usually there's like a theme. I know like a few of the people who were organizing the college bops this year and last year, and like yeah, they do like a lot of like FM regards like thinking of like a theme, and like a lot of people like kind of like adhere to the theme, so it's like quite nice. People stay in the bar beforehand and then might go into the bop. Um, and so, yeah, again, not really like the best person to ask. I only really went to the bops when I was DJing and then I left. But yeah, it's like, yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people. So I think one thing that was really, really good from this show was that obviously there's different clubs within, Cambridge. And if you would buy a bop ticket in Queens, you could then get into a club called Cindy's, also known as like Bellare or Belair. I think it's Bellare. And then you could get into like, that club on a Friday night really cheap because you already bought a bop ticket. So a lot of Queens students would go to the club on Fridays. It's called Friday Cindy's. And they play like quite like like nice music. In my opinion, so like UK rap, hip hop, yeah, all that jazz. So a few Afrobeat tracks in there. Yeah.
Oh. So it's like a 2-for-1 deal, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And was there a Mayball in the year that you were there?
Yeah, so in my first year of university, so the Maples at Queen's are every 2 years. So in my first year of university, I went to a Maple. And I think, again, like obviously, it can be obviously quite expensive. But for me personally, like I mentioned, because of my own like financial background, I do get the maximum student loan. So for me, it wasn't like an issue. Um, but I think, obviously colleges across Cambridge are trying to do more to try and subsidize the costs. So having like bursaries, so like for students to go to Maples. So yeah, I did go to Maple and it was really like, it was great. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think the theme was seasons. So there was like, it was just like really cool to be fair. Like I had never experienced anything like that. There's like a fire breather. There was, like I'll never forget this. There was like a bar, and it was like made out of ice, but I didn't know that. So initially, like I got like a drink and I put it on I put it on like the stand, and then it was slipping off. Like, why is it slipping off? Oh my gosh, like this is made out of ice. So like there was also like a mini ice rink, so people could go like ice skating quite briefly. There's also like a Ferris wheel. So yeah, they had like a really really cool theme.
Wow. Very, very like, it seems like a very Cambridge event. I really want to go to a
Yeah,
Mayball.
yeah, definitely. I think for me, especially because of like my own background, I think it's like obviously a big privilege to be able to go to Cambridge University or just university in general, because obviously the vast majority of people in the world don't actually even go to university. So I think for me, if I can like spend just like go to experience new things that I wouldn't experience being from inner city London. Again, like I mentioned, being from inner city London, because my life is just super, super different being back home. So, you know, I don't want to, you know, grow up and be older and be like, oh, I wish I made more, you know, I took more opportunities to like try new things and things I wouldn't, you know, be used to. I think, yeah. I think especially because I know like I don't really ever want like money to be an issue. I can always like earn money. Like, you know, I think that's why you go to university to get the degree, but also like, you know, make yourself a lot more better in regards to the job market. So I don't ever want to feel like, oh, I didn't do something at university because of money, when I know that I'll be able to earn the money in the future. I think that's my mentality.
That's a really good mindset to have, I think. Just before we end, I want to ask you one question. This might require a bit of reflection, but what are 3 things you know now about your college that you didn't know before you arrived?
Oh, good question. I'll probably, okay, I need to like take some time to think. 3 things I didn't know about the college, so I know now. Yeah, I think the first thing for me, again, it's quite specific, but just knowing that there were students who DJ'd, like for me, that was just like, yo, like you can DJ at Cambridge, like what? And there were some students who like were so good. So there was one girl who was amazing at the bounce. Like she was amazing. Like yeah, she was fantastic. So that's like one thing, like knowing that there's students who have a variety of like musical interests, a variety of people from like such different backgrounds, who are just super passionate about doing things like with their lives. I think it's super, super inspirational. Like, you know, the whole saying, you know, iron sharpens iron. I think for me, being at university has really like been a testament to that. Meeting people who are super, like, you know, people who want to do things in their life, are they very motivated. It kind of rubs off to you, makes you want to do better as well. The second thing was I didn't know there were 2 halls. Yeah, and so yeah, I didn't know the 2 halls, and like Old Hall, like I mentioned, is gorgeous. And if you ever do get a chance to go to Queens, I'd recommend like visiting like Old Hall because it's just beautiful. That's the second thing. I think the third thing, I wanted to say the rooftop garden. Didn't know there was rooftop garden. I even think there's like some fashion students who just don't know there's a rooftop garden. Like she just wouldn't know. Like you can easily walk past it.